Good evening. Welcome to the special meeting for fiscal year 2019 proposed budget for Thursday, December 13, 2018. And may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Myers? Here. Brodsky?
Here.
Rothman?
Here.
Lucia?
Here.
Sanchez?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Schreiber? Here. Cardwell? Here. Siegelman?
Here.
Becky?
Here.
Gillespie? Here. Sapone?
Here.
Bowman?
Here.
Klein?
Here.
Luther?
Here. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to read the motion for BOC-01-121318. Motion to adopt fiscal year 2019 proposed annual budget and tax ordinance as listed on the agenda, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Before we vote, I'd like to call on Township Manager Mr. Richard Manfredi for a budget summary.
Thank you, President Luker. For the final reading of annual budget of the Township of Abington for the year 2019, the tax levy and appropriation ordinance, ordinance number 2161, an ordinance of the Township of Abington, County of Montgomery, and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, fixing the rate for the 2019 and appropriating specific sums estimated to be required for the specific purposes of the municipal government herein set forth during the current year, be it ordained and enacted, and it is hereby ordained and enacted by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Abington, County of Montgomery, Pennsylvania. Section 1, that a tax be and the same is hereby levied on all property and occupations within the said municipality, subject to taxation for the fiscal year 2019 as follows. Tax rate for general purposes, the sum of 2 273 thousandths, 2.273 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation. For the fire purposes, the sum of 92 hundredths, 0.92 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation. For debt service purposes, the sum of 52 hundredths, 0.52 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation. For parks and recreation purposes, the sum of 25 hundredths, 0.25 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation. For library purposes, the sum of 43 hundredths, 0.43 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation. For ambulance service purposes, the sum of 5 hundredths, 0.05 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation. The same being summarized in the tabular form as follows, which lists each of those millage rates: general purposes 2.273, fire purposes 0.92, debt service purposes 0.52, parks and recreation purposes 0.25, library purposes 0.43, and ambulance service purposes 0.05, for the total of 4.443 mils for the year 2019. Section 2, for the expenses for the fiscal year 2019, the following amounts are hereby appropriated from the revenues available for the current year for the specific purposes set forth below, which amounts are more fully itemized in the budget document. Summary of operating funds. General fund, $41,165,625 is the estimated receipts in cash. Summary of appropriations, $41,165,625. Sewer operations, $9,145,395. Receipts, appropriations, $9,145,395. Highway aid, which is also known as liquid fuels tax, $2,006,178. Estimated receipts in cash, $2,006,178. Appropriations. Retirees medical, $1,718,000. Estimated receipts in cash, and summary of appropriations, $1,518,000. Tuition reimbursement, $15,000. Summary of appropriations, $15,000. Workers' compensation, 904,009. Receipts, 904,009 appropriations. And refuse, 6,062,324. Estimated receipts in cash, appropriations, 6,062,324. Total operating, 61,016,531. Summary of appropriations, 60,816,531. Summary of capital funds. Sewer operations, estimated receipts in cash, 25,000. Summary of operations, 25,000. Capital permanent improvement, 2,391,26. Estimated receipts in cash, appropriations, 2,391,26. Refuse capital, estimated receipts in cash, 435,000. Summary of appropriations, 435,000. Sewer capital, 593,000. Estimated receipts in cash. Summary of appropriations, 593,000. For a total of summary of capital funds, 3,443,126. Estimated receipts in cash. And summary of appropriations, 3,443,126. Total summary of operating funds and capital funds. Budget for 2019, $64,459,657 is the estimated receipts in cash, and the appropriations at $64,259,657. An estimate of specific items making up the amounts appropriated to the respective departments is on file in the Administrative Office of the Township Manager, the Township of Abington, Pennsylvania. Any ordinance or part of ordinance conflicting with this ordinance be the same is hereby repealed insofar as the same affects this ordinance. This ordinance shall be effective as of January 1, 2019, and if so adopted, it will be noted that it is this 13th day of December, AD 2018. Very briefly, as everyone knows, that in this budget, there was a slight increase for fire, and there was a slight increase for the ambulance to fund their fire, to fund their capital plan and forward, and for ambulance to support keeping them afloat for the people so that they serve. In every other respect, there's no tax increase for general fund or other operating purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Manfredi. Okay, at this time, before I ask for comments from commissioners, I'm going to ask for comments from the public. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on the 2019 fiscal budget for Abington Township? If there are none, I'd like to open the floor for comments from commissioners. Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. Maybe I didn't hear it right. I thought capital permanent improvements, you said 2,391,26, and I'm almost positive that's what you said twice, but maybe I misheard.
2,390,126.
126. I thought you said 300, not 391.
390,126.
I know 126. Okay.
Comma, 126.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Vice President Klein.
So I just wanted to commend the manager and Kevin and all the staff on putting together the budget this year. It was, I know after several meetings we had with finance and with other directors of committees, or chairs of committees talking about the budget, that there were some difficult choices being made and some difficult ideas, and it just, it's never easy to raise taxes, and it's never easy to prioritize expenditures throughout the budget, but it should always be said that the board tries to work hard, and the staff tries to work hard to limit those expenditures and also raising taxes, and that although this is raising for the fire department, the fire service, and also ambulance service. In the past, we've had to raise taxes for a general fund and other things, and they're all important services to the community, and none of them should be seen as above the others. It just happens to be this year we're looking to increase budgets for both the fire service and the ambulance. So I wanted to commend the staff on that work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good comments. Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with Vice President Klein on that. Definitely great work on the budget there. Both Rich and Kevin, and all the people that worked on it, Jeanette too, I'm sure was deeply involved. So thank you for that. I would just encourage us as a board to keep, Commissioner Klein hit two of them. You know, raising taxes is one way to increase the revenue, but nobody likes that, of course. And then cutting expenditures helps alleviate that pressure on the revenue. But I think moving forward, as you know, part of cohesive planning, we need to keep an eye on how to grow that revenue responsibly. And otherwise, we're, you know, the expenses aren't going down in any way. They never do, simply with inflation. So I just challenge us to be creative and come up with new ways and new ways to engender, you know, potential. If development is one way, I'm certainly not advocating for any irresponsible development. But, you know, we need to keep our eye on that revenue line. So just my 2 cents, and thank you for another fine budget season.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Any other comments from commissioners? No further comments? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I think we can call for the vote. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor for the 2019 proposed annual budget signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. It's unanimous, okay? And that concludes the reading of the fiscal year 2019 proposed budget, and at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Good evening. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to our Police Commissioner, Chief Pat Malloy.
Good evening, President Lugar, Vice President Klein, and members of the board. Thank you for allowing us to bring Officer Lee Yoakum in before you this evening. You know, we did change this up in our last candidate that we swore in. We're now bringing officers before the board after they graduate from the academy, and then they serve their one-year probationary period, and they receive permanent status in the Civil Service Commission. So if I could have Officer Lee Yoakum please join me up here as I read his bio. Officer, you'll see that Officer Lee Yoakum was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So he's an Eagles fan, right, Lee? Anyway, furthest from the truth, but it was very sweet when he came wearing his Pittsburgh jersey last year when the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. So, but he graduated from Carleton High School, which is the same high school that Sergeant Doyle graduated from. But what a coincidence. Lee was an underachiever. He received a Navy ROTC scholarship to Penn State University, and he graduated in 2011 with a Bachelor of Science in Engineering. I'm not sure what you were thinking. Criminal justice, you would have been many fewer hours that you would have been studying. But anyway, he has a degree in industrial engineering from Penn State University. Upon graduating, he was commissioned as a U.S. Navy officer in 2011 and served on the USS Anzio and in the Coastal Riverine Squadron 2. Officer Yoakum served 6 years of active service. He's currently in the reserves. After his active duty, he was hired by Abington PD back in July of 2017. He attended the Montgomery County Police Academy from July until December, where he was elected as the class leader and lieutenant of his academy class. Upon graduation, he was assigned to Lieutenant Quinn in our field training officer program, which is a rigorous program where they're evaluated daily, weekly, monthly, and then after 1 year, the deputy chief, patrol commanders, and others weigh in to recommend him for full civil service protected police officer. He's now assigned to the patrol division and is on D platoon. So there's his background. Last night, fewer than 24 hours, we had a cancellation. All the district judges were not available. So we made a few calls, and Judge Gary Silo, the Honorable Judge Gary Silo, is also an Abington Township resident, volunteered to come in here, and we're very grateful for Judge Silo to be here to swear in Officer Yoakum. So thank you, Your Honor. I think. Do you need mine at all? You're loud. Okay.
Please repeat after me. I, say your name,
I, Lee Yoakum,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States,
the Constitution and the laws of the United States,
the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the Township of Abington,
the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the Township of Abington,
that I will faithfully discharge with fidelity
that I will faithfully discharge with fidelity
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as a police officer for Abington Township,
as a police officer for Abington Township,
and will obey the rules and regulations,
and will obey the rules and regulations,
policies and procedures
policies and procedures
governing all sworn members
governing all sworn members
of the Abington Township Police Department.
of the Abington Township Police Department.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Your Honor. And now we'll have Sarah Levy, his fiance and college sweetheart, will be pinning on the badge. Be careful. And we always give the officer an opportunity to introduce family, friends, and just to make some comments. So thank you, officer.
All right. Obviously, you met my fiancee, Sarah, my future father-in-law and mother-in-law, Alex and Brenda Levy, and my best friend, Chris, are here to celebrate. My family in Pittsburgh couldn't make it, but they're here with me. So I want to thank you, Board of Commissioners, for having me up here. Chief Malloy, thank you for giving me this opportunity. All the other officers that I work with, you guys all did. I didn't do this. You helped me out through it, and I just want to say that I'm humbled and honored to be here, and I want to continue working, and I love it here, so thank you.
At this time, we'll take a brief intermission before we start our regularly scheduled Commissioners' meeting. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Township of Abington's Board of Commissioners meeting for Thursday, December the 13th. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Myers. Here. Brodsky.
Here.
Rossman.
Here.
Placido.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Shriver.
Here.
Cardwell.
Here.
Spiegelman.
Here.
Banky.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Lucar.
Here. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, there are no announcements from the President's seat. We've already had presentations, so at this time, I'd like to open the floor up for public comments on agenda items on our agenda this evening. Any comments from the public on anything listed on our agenda for this evening? Public comments on anything listed on the agenda this evening? If there are none, we'll move on to the consent agenda and approval of the minutes, and for that, I call on Vice President Stephen Klein.
Thank you, President Luker. Consent agenda, items of business and matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussions of these items. If discussion is desired by a board member or board members, that item is to be identified by the board member and will be identified and removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately at an appropriate place on the agenda. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through A and B, and D through N. I would like C to be considered separately, as I have one comment to be made during that agenda item. So once again, I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda A and B and D through N, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, the motion carries.
And that completes the consent agenda, and item C would be put on unfinished, or new business for the Administrative Code and Land Use Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President Klein. At this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner John Spiegelman under our unfinished business from our previous meeting for the Public Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our item of unfinished business is PA01. This is a motion to approve the installation of a new fire alarm panel system to monitor the sprinkler system at the Crestmont Clubhouse at additional costs as a result of unforeseen soils conditions and change order 001, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? From Vice President Klein.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, I think I will vote for this agenda item because I believe the contractor should be compensated for the work that was done. But I still have my disappointments in the process and how certain parts of the approval process did not act or did not get involved early enough. So with that, thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Schreiber.
I have a question. The number that's underneath, is that the original number?
Yeah, the PA 05101118.
Yep, that's the original. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Mr. President, that concludes the unfinished business of the Public Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman. At this time, we move to new business, and I call on Commissioner Ben Sanchez for the Administrative Code and Land Use Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe there is actually an item of unfinished business removed from the consent agenda by Vice President Klein, and that was item C, ACL 2, 12, 13, 18. This is a motion approving the subdivision application for a lot line change by Harish Yaron and Jennifer Park, and Ainke Hips Fight and Seth Fight for properties located at 936 Morden Road and 979 Dale Road, Meadowbrook, PA.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners?
So
Commissioner Klein.
I just wanted to make one clarification. We got the recommendation letter from the Planning Commission, and the additional comment was about condition concerning installation of sidewalks on both Morden Road and Dale Road. That was not the note. I want the note, I just want to make sure that when the approval happens, that the note is exactly what happened in the previous, which only was looking at sidewalks on Morden and not Morden and Dale. So I want to make sure that that's the only reason I wanted to pull it off, is to make that clarification that we're not asking to change that note. I want the exact same note back on there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Okay, we need to vote on that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
And that concludes the unfinished business of the Administrative Code and Land Use Committee. Mr. President, now moving to the new business for Administrative Code and Land Use Committee, we have ACL 1. This is a motion approving the Metaplex Property Group LLC land development application for the properties located at 1863 and 1865 Guernsey Avenue, 1854 and 1856 Eckerd Avenue, and 1137, 1141, 1145, and 1151 Old York Road, Abington, PA, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Klein, Vice President Klein.
Yeah. So I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and I know we discussed it at the, I'm not sure why the resident is standing up.
Excuse me. Ms.
I'm there because this
You
did
don't-
not, this did
you're-
not
you're-
come
Mrs.
to the
Lehman,
code
you're out of-
committee.
Ms.
It
Lehman.
did not come to code
You're
committee.
out of order.
I know.
You're out of order.
Want
Please
to
sit
hear
down.
why I'm out of order, please?
Ms. Lehman, you do not walk into a meeting and just come to the podium and start speaking.
There's
Please
an
sit
order, there's a
down.
point of order problem. It didn't come to the code committee after planning, so I'm asking you should allow for comment now. Thank you.
Please sit down. Thank you. We'll ask for a ruling from council.
I don't believe that's contained in our speaking rules. It was on the workshop agenda last week. Residents had ample opportunity to speak on it. We had a public comment period at the beginning of tonight's meeting for all agenda items. No one stepped forward. Anyone could have stepped forward and spoken on this item or any other night on the agenda. I don't believe it's required by our speaking rules.
Okay, thank you, Counsel. Vice President
Yeah.
Klein, continue.
I just wanted to make sure, I just wanted to understand from the property owner or from the developer about the verge, if that decision had been made or if anything was going to change on that, or if discussions had occurred with the ward commissioner on that.
Robert Lynn, representing the applicants and architect.
Excuse me, sir, could you come to the microphone, please? Thank you. Thank you.
We have no issue with introducing the verge. If that's what the commissioners would like, my experience as a designer is oftentimes it doesn't survive very well because it has salt-laden snow on it, and it just becomes a ruddy cigarette butt piece. But if that's what the commissioners would like, we're delighted to put it in. It's actually cheaper for us. So we'll follow your lead on that item.
I would like to see some kind of verge just for more safety along, that was the reason that it was stated. I would take the opinion or the lead of the ward commissioner on that specific issue, but I think that was the reason why it was put into the zoning ordinance.
We're happy to give it to you.
So,
Okay.
And in fact, it was I don't mean to jump in if you're
I'm done.
finished,
I'm done.
Commissioner Klein, but
Excuse me. Gentlemen, please. Gentlemen, please, hold on.
it was indeed a recommendation of the Planning Commission from the other night to include the verge. They had actually several comments, and there were a few more I actually just discussed with the resident. Those that come up, they didn't make it into the Planning Commission thing, so if we could just tick down those items, and if with the applicant's agreement, I'd be willing to make that part of the motion, or I guess an amendment to the motion to include those as conditions of the approval. The comments from the Planning Commission were to, the applicant must contact SEPTA concerning the relocation of the bus stop on Old York Road. The goal is to have the bus stop in front of the courtyard being installed as a plan.
Yes,
I
and
assume
we
that-
will, good evening, Kim Freemuth here on behalf of the applicant. We will agree.
Excuse me, Counsel, could you speak in the microphone,
Oh,
please?
sorry.
Thank you.
Kim Freemuth here on behalf of the applicant, and yes, we will agree to contact SEPTA, and to the extent that they acquiesce to the movement of the location, we will agree to do that.
Great, thank you. Again, Planning Commission comment number 2, the crosswalk and connective sidewalks are still required to be installed from the rear parking area to the front entrance of the building. I believe those are interior kind of sidewalks, if that's
And that's agreed.
striping.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Number 3, the applicant, and this is actually one of the neighbor in my comments, the applicant must work with the Township of Abington to install traffic calming measures on both Guernsey and Eckert Avenue. And this is the one that is a little bit fluid because of the township doesn't have a determined position on speed bumps or speed tables or whatever we call it. But I believe the applicant's willing to work with us to determine a mutually acceptable number should the township decide to go, down the road of speed bumps, speed tables, to install those.
Yes, the applicant is willing to work with the township to come up with a traffic calming plan that suits the township, and then a mutually agreed upon contributions towards that traffic calming. We would like to put a time limitation on that, so this condition isn't something that's hanging out here for a number of years, and would like to just confirm that that wouldn't hold up the commencement of the project, but certainly we are agreeable to
Thank you
meeting
for
with the
that.
township.
Yep. And that would be, I believe we were discussing maybe 6 months would be a reasonable time to flesh that out and, have a determined plan. And if we couldn't come to an agreement, then you would come back to the board.
That's agreeable from our standpoint.
And that, all those traffic calming measures may include signage too. I just mentioned the speed humps and the speed tables, but it may also be an effort to either reduce the speed limits or install signage that would have some traffic calming effect.
That's understood.
Great. Another the residents' concerns, deal mostly with traffic and pedestrian access, but one of the other concerns mentioned, and this is probably, a commitment for best efforts from your construction company, to have the vehicles enter and exit on Old York Road as opposed to the Guernsey and Eckerd side streets because they're very narrow and already congested. So if construction traffic could be limited to Old York Road.
I think to the extent possible, that makes perfect sense. We'll comply with that.
And I doubt some of the construction vehicles would even fit, so it may be a self-fulfilling item. There is also a condition of repainting the crosswalks at Guernsey and at Eckerd, and any signage that might be needed there, but also the signing the crosswalk that crosses Old York Road at the property.
We have agreed to that as well, yes.
Great. And then finally, residents were concerned with public use of the parking lot after business hours, more so for like hospital overflow traffic and the like, business overflow traffic. If we could have signage indicating that it's private property and, to the extent possible, keeping cars out of there, that would be the final
The developer
condition.
just gave me a head nod to the affirmative.
Yes.
We're good there.
Great. So without repeating all those conditions, if I could make an amendment to the motion to include those conditions as a condition to approval, unless there's other conditions folks would like to add. I see Commissioner Schreiber.
I'm not adding a condition, I'm just questioning one of them. So if we're talking about speed calming measures, we're not being very clear on what that means. And so I don't want to vote on something, an amendment that I may not agree with when it comes down. So I'm not sure exactly how we can put that in as an amendment.
Well, it would be a matter of if the board eventually decides we're going to allow speed bumps or speed tables, and then that would be something that would be a traffic calming measure we would put to the applicant. So I would say, maybe abstain from voting on it if you have a fundamental problem with it.
If the board desires, they can instruct the manager not to install any traffic calming devices on either of the two roads without board approval, or at least having it brought back before the board. It normally wouldn't be required to do something along those lines, but if the board wants, they can instruct Mr. Manfredi, don't put speed tables or other traffic calming measures in there without it being brought back before the board. I think it'll be examined and then some recommendations will be made, so that can all be shared with the board before anything is done.
And frankly, I'm comfortable with that, and I don't know
Okay.
if that made you comfortable,
Yeah.
but that almost was what I was, along the lines of what I was thinking the board would have.
So there would be a separate vote on that in the future if, as far as this.
Well, it doesn't really require a vote, but if the board wants to instruct the manager not to do anything without a vote, you could do it that way
I
if
would
you
feel more
wanted.
comfortable with that as far as that particular item. I'm in agreement with the rest of them, but.
Okay, Commissioner Spiegelman.
Following up on what Commissioner Sanchez said, I mean, as long as the neighbors, Commissioner Sanchez's constituents, made it very clear to both Commissioner Sanchez and myself how important it is that there be traffic calming measures. I don't know if the neighbors themselves even have a set opinion on what type of measures they would prefer, but as long as we're enshrining the support and commitment of the developer on this, then I think we can all move forward. Would you agree, Commissioner Sanchez?
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Gillespie, then
Thank you. I will be
Commissioner Zafone.
abstaining on this vote because I do believe I have a conflict.
Excuse me, could you speak
I
up?
will be abstaining on this vote.
Okay.
I believe I have a conflict.
Okay, Commissioner Zafone.
Just a question. There was a town meetings with the residents that live around there, and they're okay with this?
Well, there have been, as you know, a series, we started this project back in March, and there was actually a neighborhood meeting with the developer and some residents. And of course, there's been the Planning Commission meetings on 2 occasions, and there have been resident input at each one of those. So, I mean, to the best I can tell you, no one spoke this evening during public comment on the session, so that gives me at least some comfort level about the neighborhood.
Yeah, but I mean, at
endorsement.
your other meetings, do the residents object to this, or they're fine with this? The people that live right there?
If I may, Commissioner Zappone, the neighbors came out and were involved, during the process. Most of the concerns honestly centered on the traffic in the
Okay.
area. And, it was a concern about exacerbating the existing bad traffic problem that's there, because these are sort of notorious cut-through streets in both
Right.
directions. There were, I don't want to, say they had no concerns, because there were other concerns about landscaping, but the applicant was very diligent in addressing those items. They went to the Shade Tree Commission, came up with what was, a
And
very
those
nice
issues are
plan.
going to be addressed. I see them here, so. okay.
Exactly, right.
That's all.
I think overall, it's a tremendous improvement to a block that's become vacant, and we looked at the alternatives of development, and this seems to be one of the better alternatives to some of the other uses by rights. Why we spent the time at the zoning hearing board to get the special exception for a medical office building, because we believe it's a great endorsement of that corner and an improvement what you have right now, so.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? Liz, note that Commissioner Gillespie is abstaining from the vote. Okay, Commissioner Sanchez, are you going to go with the motion that's on the floor, or are you going to amend the motion?
I had the amendment on the floor, I believe. I don't know if it got a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on the amended motion. Is there any explanation required?
Just so we're clear,
Okay.
I discussed this with Commissioner Gillespie before the meeting began. Commissioner Gillespie is required to announce the nature of the conflict at the time the vote is taken. Yes, you are. Thank you. You announce it as an abstention. You're required by law to announce the nature of the why, exactly.
Okay. Now?
When the vote is called.
Okay. And we're ready to vote on the amended motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining mainly because I do happen to be affiliated with the real estate company that has the property for sale.
Okay, all right. All right, and now we'll vote on the original motion, correct?
Right.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion that's presented in your agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Never mind, I'm sorry. Withdraw that statement.
Okay, any other comments of the applicant from commissioners?
Just, may I confirm
Yes.
that that would include the waiver requests that were approved by the Planning Commission as well? Yes. I know they
I
weren't.
think so, yeah.
They weren't mentioned this evening, so I just wanted to confirm that the vote is included.
Indeed, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, they were mentioned by Commissioner Sanchez as what was written from the resolution, or from the recommendation.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the time
Thank you very
spent on the
much.
project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President.
At this time, I'd like to call on the Public Affairs Committee Chair, Commissioner John Spiegelman.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the one item of new business for the Public Affairs Committee. It is item PA-03. This is a motion to approve the Penn State University and Abington School District Real Estate Assessment Appeals Settlement Agreement, and I so move.
Second? Anyone seconded?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions?
Well, I would ask that this be explained, and also, I think it's appropriate that we should take public comments, since this was not on our committee agenda last week.
This is correct. Okay.
concur.
So let's turn it over first to Township Manager Richard Manfredi.
Thank you, Mr. President. And number one, as you know, this did not go before the committees. This is an issue that has been ongoing. It was a mediation that was requested by Penn State Abington on an assessment appeal to change their total assessment, which obviously affects their property values. That began, I believe, somewhere back in October. I think the first request between Abington School District, it was actually filed on October 3rd by Penn State University versus Montgomery County Board of Assessment Appeals, and it was assigned to an attorney from a law firm within the county, and the pre-conference appraisal reports went back that far. We did not, let me rephrase, Mr. Glassman, Mr. Clark, myself, but primarily attorneys from Whistler Pearlstein, who are the solicitors for the school district, who on a regular basis negotiate these settlements, and we will either agree or not agree. Back in February, I believe, the board established a policy rather than the manager and the administration just making all the determinations. Anything greater than $5,000 needs to come to you. This has been going on since October, but did not get to us and resolved in a form until Friday, December 7th, after our committee meetings. The school district would like to get this resolved prior to our January 10 next business meeting, which is the reason it's in front of you this evening. And so I apologize if there's any confusion. Obviously, it was not at the committee meetings, and you didn't receive it until today because Mr. Clark and Mr. Glassman were working on this until Monday to put the draft together, and we had to assess it and become familiar with it, and that's why you're just seeing it now. So December 7, we find out that they want us to do this prior, meaning the school district, and the 11th, Monday, Tuesday, the memorandum came out, which you received from council. So we apologize for the manner in which this came before you, but the question that is, and the only issue in front of the board is, do we or do we not want to concur with the negotiated settlement with respect to the amount of taxes to be reimbursed to Penn State University? If you did not have an opportunity to read what we sent out and what the solicitor sent out, I'd be happy to read it for everyone's edification. Or if you would like, since it's your document, Mr. Clark, it's up to you.
So essentially what you have in front of you is Penn State. There are two properties, 1001 Old York Road and 1095 Rydell Road. Penn State paid their full property taxes on those properties for 2017 and 2018. They subsequently filed an exemption to be exempt from taxes for 2019, and that was granted because they are exempt from taxes. They then filed an appeal to get a refund on taxes for 2017 and 2018 because, again, they're exempt. The only real legal issue is the fact that if they had timely filed the appeal, they would be exempt and we'd be returning approximately $70,000 for 2017 and about $90,000 for 2018. Excuse me, it's the other way around. But they filed their appeal late. But they have now filed a motion with a judge in Montgomery County asking that, notwithstanding the fact that they are late, that they be permitted to move forward with their appeal. It's been negotiated by the attorney representing the school district and the attorney representing Penn State, essentially a compromise that removes the risk of a judge ruling against us and removes the risk of a judge ruling against them, and they'll only seek the return of the 2018 taxes, and we'll be able to keep the 2017 taxes. Moving forward, though, they are exempt completely on the 1001 Old York Road property and on the 1095 Rydell Road. Since they do use some of that as a rental property, we're still going to be able to collect a portion of those real estate taxes on the rental property. They're not fully exempt because they're not using it all for an educational purpose. So our recommendation is to accept the settlement that's been negotiated by Margaret Chotsky on behalf of the school district.
I have a correction, I believe. You said they paid all their taxes for 18 for York Road. They have not paid school. We have not received the money for school yet.
I think that's probably partially because of what they worked out with the school district, that during the pendency of the appeal, they'd hold the taxes. So, yep, thank you, Mr. Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Manfredi and Mr. Michael Clark. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Sanchez.
Mr. Clark, did we get any clarification on the point where Mr. Manfredi, that was in the memorandum that discussed the scholarship? Because I just wasn't clear as to, there was an existing scholarship that was created at the time of the Lionsgate land development. Were they proposing an additional one here, or is that just something they mentioned? It's, was goodwill or that?
We contacted the attorney representing the school district to attempt to get a clarification on that issue today. Unfortunately, we were unable to reach her. She was out, did not get back to us. We looked at the prior agreement, and you are correct. There was the scholarship piece that was part of the original. Penn State doesn't like when I say the word pilot,
right,
but the original pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes. It appears to us from all the information that we have that this is a new and separate scholarship offer on behalf of Penn State and is not just a reiteration of what was negotiated back several years ago. Because as you'll recall, there were other issues that were negotiated several years ago with Penn State, and it's not as if they are restating those also. So to the best of our understanding, it's an additional $30,000 scholarship.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Spiegelman and then Commissioner Vahey.
Solicitor Clark, setting aside what's obviously sort of the vexing situation, I think, for all of us of receiving this at the last minute, which you did explain very carefully. Based on your best legal prognostication ability, is this better or even significantly better than what we're going to get if we roll the dice taking this to a judge?
Well, really what this comes down to is if a judge says your appeal was late, you're out, we get to keep both years. If the judge says, yeah, your appeal was a little bit late, but I'm going to let you go forward, we lose both years. So what people have decided is we'll give you 1 year, you give us back the other year. So both sides are hedging that a judge could rule against either side. So if judge rules in our favor, it's not like we're getting $600,000, or it's not as if they're no longer tax exempt. They're tax exempt.
Right,
so
of course.
All it is, it's a matter of 1 year. So I think that's what both sides decided. That's what the school district negotiated because they thought making that compromise made sense.
And if the board doesn't ratify this settlement this evening, Mr. Clark?
And again, Mr. Manfredi explained it. I just want to explain a little further. These negotiations between Penn State and the school district and us have been going on for some time. It's only been within the last 5 or 6 days that they were able to reach an agreement. We found out about it. We talked to the attorney for the school district. We were able to get some information. We put this memo together. We got it over to you on Tuesday. But there is a kind of a time crunch because there's a possibility the judge is going to rule on their motion for appeal prior to us meeting again in January. And if he does and lets them go forward with their appeal, even though they were late, like I said, we lose because they're exempt. And I think that's a point that I don't want to have lost on the board. Technically, we're not entitled to this money because they're tax exempt. They paid it, and then they went to appeal it because they weren't declared exempt at that point in time. And the law is until you're declared tax exempt, you're required to pay your taxes, notwithstanding what Mr. Blumenthal said about the agreement. So they paid it under protest. Unfortunately, they filed late. Yeah.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you, Counselor.
Commissioner Vahey.
This memo doesn't note
how much in tax the prior owner of 1095 Bridle Road was paying to the township? Do we know what that number is and how much we're losing going forward?
I apologize, I do not have that information available about what the Rydell Road property is.
Okay, I'd like that for the next finance
Yep.
meeting.
Commissioner Brodsky, then Commissioner Thompson.
So how late was the appeal?
I think it was a couple of days,
What's a couple of days?
2 days. August 1st, they filed it on August 3rd.
Was a motion to strike or motion to quash filed?
We're not handling the litigation. It was being handled by Whistler Pearlstein. I think they argued against the fact that it was late.
Was there
I think
oral
they
argument?
filed everything they needed to file, and then it's ready for disposition, so.
Was there oral argument on this?
I do not know.
So you're not certain if
Your
there was a
microphone
motion
on?
to strike or not?
Your mic on?
Yeah, it is. You're not certain if a motion to strike was filed?
No,
Is it scheduled for any further oral argument?
I do not know.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Thompson, thank you.
Of the $70,381, how much of that actually comes to the township versus the school board?
That is the township.
That's
That is the
our
township,
portion.
so it's all
Yep.
70,000 is the
Yep.
townships? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers.
Assuming this goes through, would Penn State be subject to later to any in lieu of taxes?
Now, as you'll recall, Commissioner Myers, we negotiated that agreement with them a couple of years ago, and they were very much opposed to us referring to it as a payment in lieu of taxes. They set up the scholarship, as you're aware. They do pay certain money to the township for, I'm blanking on the title, the emergency management coordinator, and I believe there are some other contributions that they do make to the township, but Penn State never likes to frame those in terms of a payment in lieu of taxes, because as you're probably aware, they have campuses throughout the Commonwealth. They have different deals with every municipality that they're in. So there is not an agreement for any further payment in lieu of taxes, other than what we negotiated with them back in a couple of years ago when the project was going in.
But apparently when we negotiated that, they were paying taxes.
They were, because they had not yet been declared exempt. And you have to pay your taxes until the Board of Assessment says that you are an exempt property. And
So doesn't this change the landscape? If this agreement goes through, doesn't that change the landscape? And we can use any term we want for in lieu of taxes, but
Right, and that's the agreement we negotiated with them 2.5 years ago. That was the agreement, that was the one that was going to carry us forward for what payments we would receive in lieu of them paying taxes.
paying real estate taxes at all.
Right, yes, yes.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? If there are none, to Vice President Klein's point, this item was not on the committee agenda, so we will open it up for a public comment at this time. And if you would please adhere to our 3-minute speaking rule. Thank you.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. Yes, and I would like to say when I came in, that is not in the public interest to not hear, to not even try to hear what people are saying. It would have been a reasonable question. It would have been a reasonable question to ask, and the Metaplex item should have had comment during that time, because ample comment was not offered. Also, I'd like to mention that moving items all around, I came in and there was a public affairs item. And so now.
This is about a tax appeal.
So now we're on.
This is about a tax appeal.
Yeah, I understand that. And
You
so,
have to
and so now
understand-
we're on, so I'm saying finding.
About a tax appeal.
Finding the items to speak
No,
about
you have to follow the agenda.
are
Some were listed
problematic.
under unfinished business, and some are listed under new
Yeah,
business.
so
Go ahead.
when you present at the committee meetings, all the things, public affairs is in one place and so on.
Ms. Lehman, why don't you get to your
And then you come here and
point?
you mix them all up. They're more difficult for residents
Well,
to
let's get to the
follow,
point
and you
of Penn
need to hear
State,
that.
the item that's on the floor
And so
right
the
now.
item at about Penn State, again, wouldn't even be easy to find because you're not keeping them in order. So that's the first thing, and that wasn't even, I didn't even notice that because you have them jumped all over the place. So the comment, too, that I'd like to make is that, first of all, I'd like to say, and I didn't fully understand all the questions Commissioner Brodsky was asking, but my question is, how does a judge decide? If there was a deadline and they missed the deadline, how does a judge decide that? So I see there are other complications to that. But in fact, it should be following specific law. Either they made the deadline or they didn't make a deadline. And so the second thing is that you were bringing up the issue of the scholarship money, and the scholarship money that was supposed to be a benefit to the township is really a benefit to Penn State, okay? And again, I opposed it before because it allows commissioners, for instance, to recommend one of their constituents for the scholarship. And so it becomes, in a sense, walking around money. So I'm opposed to that.
That does not happen.
Well, yeah, and I know we talked about not
Absolutely not
doing
true.
that, but what happens
You're
behind...
making an allegation. It's absolutely not true. The commissioners have nothing to do with it.
Okay, hold on. Are you finished your comments?
You can look stunned all you want to. You're completely wrong.
Is he
Vice
finished
President Klein,
interrupting?
please.
He's finished interrupting.
I'm
now.
stopping Vice President
Thank you.
Klein from
I
interrupting.
appreciate that,
Go ahead.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
finished?
Those are
Thank
my
you.
feelings, and that is how it works. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments from the public? Name and address, please, for the record.
How are you? Mark Pizzacco, 103 Edge Hill Road. My opinion on this matter is if there was an agreement 2.5 years ago, it's a shame to just throw away an agreement with somebody over a 2-day technicality. But that put aside, I find it a little concerning that you'll bring this matter in front of the board without any kind of cases that have set precedent on this in the past as far as how a judge might rule on this or not rule on it. I don't see why there's a scare of possibly losing a case if we've seen other cases that were similar to this. I'm wondering if anybody has looked any cases up similar or has any precedent on that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? If there are none,
Commissioner Luker, before the vote,
right.
I'll give, we'll have our little Latin lesson for the evening. Ms. Gallagher reminded me to go to Commissioner Brodsky's point. The appeal was 2 days late. It was filed nunc pro tunc, which means that the applicant, the appellant, acknowledged that they were late, but then said that there were reasons that they were late and that the court should allow them to appeal, notwithstanding the fact that they are late. The school district, on behalf of themselves and the township, filed motions opposing the appeal nunc pro tunc, and the judge has allowed the argument on the appeal to move forward, and that's what we may be awaiting a decision. As far as case law and precedent, nunc pro tunc appeals are very much fact-based, and they are based on the information that will be presented as to why you were late and the reasons why you were late, and whether or not your tax bill was delivered late or something along those lines. So finding a whole lot of case law may not necessarily give you any indication, because the facts and circumstances of all of these cases are very different. And at the end of the day, it falls to the discretion of the judge in balancing the equity of the situation as to whether or not he thinks they should be allowed to move forward. That's why the recommendation is being made by both the school district solicitor and my office.
Mr. Manfredi, you had a comment?
Yes, and also, this settlement agreement is specific to the assessment on the property and the property taxes. It has no bearing whatsoever on the agreement that was enacted and adopted by the board between Penn State and the township on the 24th day of June 2016. No relevance whatsoever between the appeal and this. The risk is that we could lose at least $70,000 if the judge says you have to pay both, at a minimum. And just one final note, in that agreement of June 2016, it specifically says the university agrees to provide $30,000 in annual scholarships to be awarded to township residents at the discretion of the university. Scholarships shall be administered by the university.
Okay. All right, is there any other comments? Commissioner Gillespie.
Thanks. I do have a question. I thought they weren't going to pay the 2018 anyway?
No, what Mr. Blumenthal said is they did not pay their 2018 school taxes.
Okay.
What I assume happens is if ours is $75,000, $80,000, the school taxes are dramatically more. So they probably reached an agreement with the school district that during the pendency of the appeal, they didn't have to lay out the $800,000 or whatever it would have been. So, but if they lost the appeal, they'd be required to pay it. If they didn't lose if they won the appeal, they wouldn't have to pay it.
Okay, Commissioner Vahey.
I think I want to crystallize the risk here.
Thank you.
So if we don't agree to the settlement and the judge rules against us, we would lose the $23,000 we get to retain on Lionsgate. We would also lose whatever portion of the taxes that we are still retaining on Rydell Road, but we don't know what portion of taxes that is. Mr. Blumenthal, do you have an idea?
Three-story building, so I think they split it to 1/3, but you're also going to be paying business taxes on that rental income. So it's 1/3 of the total, I believe, that they will still be paying taxes on.
Oh, no, what I meant is, we are losing, we have the, we have,
Do you have a
under
total?
the agreement, we get to retain the tax that we've already collected for 2018 on Rydell Road. If we don't accept the agreement, we lose the appeal, we would then have to return the 2018 taxes on Rydell Road, which we have collected, correct?
Correct.
Which is
How much is that?
I don't know offhand.
Okay. And I'm sorry,
But we're not.
It's at
we're
least
not
23,000.
We're not returning anything on the Rydell Road property.
we would if we lost the,
We would if we lost.
right,
But
and
we're-
that's what I'm trying to
right.
assess the risk.
Right. And again, I can't stress this enough. We're really not entitled to the money.
No, I get that.
I do have a comment, if I might.
Mr. Blumenthal.
Somebody mentioned about case law. I've seen it where a religious institution we had a case not too long ago where a religious institution was bankrupt, taken over by a bank. Another religious institution bought it, but that year it was still taxable because the bank owned it. And they had not filed for an exemption because they thought they would automatically get an exemption. And ultimately, we ended up fighting it, and we lost, and the county gave them the exemption, even though they had filed very late, and they were warned multiple times. So there have been cases where we've lost with a religious institution. Now, let's say a private individual buys a property that was a religious institution during a year. They keep that exemption for the balance of that year. But there are cases where we just can't win them.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Bowman.
I think the settlement makes sense for the township, and I appreciate the solicitor's advice. I urge my commissioners to endorse the settlement.
Okay. Any other closing comments? If there are none, it was moved and seconded. I'll entertain a motion to take a vote on this at this time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Mr. President, that concludes the new business of the Public Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman. At this time, I call on Vice President Stephen Klein, Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, President Luker. I'd like to call on Treasurer Jay Blumenthal for the Treasurer's report this evening.
I'll make it brief. As for the monies put into Republic Bank from the various departments, We had a good month for the month of November. Year-to-date, we're ahead by approximately $792,000. As for real estate taxes, we are at the 93% year-to-date with 7% remaining. I do expect December to bring in a lot of money because nobody wants to be on the lien list. We're behind last year, actually, by $11,661 for the month of November. But I don't believe we have any problem meeting the targets that we normally do. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Treasurer Blumenthal. Before us, we have one agenda item, FC02112018, motion to approve the October expenditures as previously circulated to the board in the amount of $1,718,118.76 in salaries and wages in the amount of $1,854,466.65 and authorizing the proper officials to sign vouchers and payment of bills and contracts as they mature through the month of January 2019, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Myers? Yes. Brodsky? Yes. Rothman? Lucido?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Shriver? Yes. Carswell?
Yes.
Spiegelman?
Yes.
Beatty?
Yes.
Gillespie?
Yes.
Savone?
Yes.
Bowman? Yes. Klein?
Yes.
Yes.
That completes the Finance Committee's agenda.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Klein. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Vice President Stephen Klein, Chair of the Pension Committee.
Thank you, President Luker. Before us, we have PENS 01112018, motion to approve Resolution 18-048, amending police pension plan document pertaining to member contribution, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those, any comments from commissioners? From Commissioner Vahey.
Is this, I see it's part of the CBA from 2012. Is this something that we have to do every year, though? Is that, I don't understand why we're voting on it now if it was in the CBA from 2012.
It is. It's something it's part of the police contract.
And so we have to renew this every year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners or questions? All right, any from staff? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
That concludes the Pension Committee's agenda.
Thank you, Vice President Klein. That concludes our formal agenda for this evening. At this time, I'd like to open the floor up for public comment.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So there are 25 items on the agenda, maybe 19 without the discussion items. So I am not quite sure how you think 3 minutes is enough to comment on those. And so I would suggest, again, that those are improper rules for people who are serving the public, who desperately need to be served. They're not here because they often don't even have a clue what's going on. So number one is I would like to talk about the right-to-know documents that I have asked for about the BET project. I put that right-to-know in just about a month ago, November 15th, and there is no reason that they have to take as long as they take, and they illegally answered 9 days late that they were taking it after trying to pass off some links as their response within 6 days instead of the 5. So I would like you, as commissioners, where these people serve at your pleasure, I would like you actually to ask them, please, to provide these documents that are needed for the meeting on December 18th, and they are very important. In other townships, the documents showed some bad behavior, and the same bad behavior on the same issue seems to have been present here, and I think we need those documents. So I'd very much like to have those BET documents in time for this meeting. That would be by Monday or Tuesday at the very, very latest. I would like also to just say somehow we slid back on the public safety agenda. You had an item on there which we had no idea where the signs or what the signs were going to be and where the signs were going to go. I thought we had worked hard to get that onto the motion. It's gone out of the motion. We'd also like to just discuss the Metaplex situation. I don't know how to do this in a nutshell, but those particular people were told at every venue that they went to that they were at the wrong venue to discuss their issues, and it was some other venue. At the first one, where they should have been told to go to the zoning meeting because that's where the project would have been smaller and the traffic would have been less, they were told their concerns were about traffic, so they should wait till land development. That was completely false and misleading to them because, in fact, they got their zoning approved based on the fact that they weren't developing the parking lot, they were undeveloping it. They actually tried, it's mind-boggling. But at every place, even the Planning Commission, just the other night, they were told that they were in the wrong place. And yet I have seen at the Planning Commission, I have been to Planning Commission meetings where the Planning Commission, together with the residents, made a list of the things that should be recommended to the township. They were not told that. They were told they were in the wrong place and they should go to land development. This is, I mean, the whole process was skewed. And so I'll leave that go, but because there's no time. I would like to say that the HUD project with the fire alarms and the soils, that's unbelievable that $1.6 million and they're coming back for more money. Somebody needs to look at the size of that building and they need to be responsible to pay for everything that's due. If they forgot to check what the soils were, then that should be on them. Again, the meetings, at the Planning Commission meeting, those people from BET who have been plagued for a year came out and they were put fourth meeting, for important meetings like the Brandolini meeting, and they were put at the end of the agenda. It was 10 o'clock before their meeting started, and they were told that it could go till 12 o'clock. That's not appropriate. People have to get up early. They have to go to work. Some people don't mentally function because they're used to going to bed at 10 or 11 o'clock, and they don't even mentally function after that. It's unfair. And there were some people there that had recently had surgery or couldn't sit long, and they had to sit through a 4-hour meeting to speak for a couple of minutes. Okay. This is not all right. This is not serving the residents, and plans need to be made to change that. All of the accommodations were made for the developers who missed that meeting, but they still wanted to be finished by Christmas.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to wrap it up?
I'll make that enough, except that I just want to say that Commissioner Klein, with his comment about the whams don't happen, there are so many things that happen behind the scenes with relationships, and we all know that. So we do need to be concerned about those things. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Comments from the public? If there are none, we'll start with closing comments from the commissioners, starting with Commissioner Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody. And we'll say, I guess, goodbye to Commissioner Sanchez and good luck to you up in Harrisburg, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowman. I may actually stay on through the January meeting, so
all right.
No need to kiss me off. So maybe I'll finish out my term.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Zappone.
Our Ardsley Community Association has 2 events left for 2018. This Sunday will be our 6th annual Breakfast with Santa at the VFW Post 676 on Jenkintown Road, and that'll be from 9 till noon. So this event is open to all residents in Abington Township, and if you're interested, please contact me. And our last event will be our 2nd annual New Year's Eve party at the VFW 676 Jenkintown Road from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. If you're interested in that, please contact me. And that'll be it till April for our designer bag bingo. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillespie.
Good job. All I want to say is Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Commissioner Vahey.
No comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Spiegelman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to let everybody know, township calendars are in the mail. A lot of folks have gotten them already. They will all be in the mail stream well before the Christmas holiday. Other than that, just want to wish everybody in the township Merry Christmas, Happy Solstice, Happy New Year, and all the best for the holiday season.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Carswell.
No comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber.
I want to thank everybody who worked on the Roslyn holiday event, block party. There was too many people, probably, and I'll forget somebody if I say everybody's name, but certainly Ed Micolo was the main person who coordinated it, and the Micolo family actually were all there, so thank you for that. And happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you. Commissioner Brodsky.
Thanks, Mr. President. No comment.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Drew Rothman.
Thank you, President Luker. It is this Saturday at the McKinley Firehouse, 4 to 6, that we will have the holiday party. And in tradition, like the Halloween party, we're probably going to have terrible weather. But this time, we're not going to cancel it. So everything is indoors, so anybody watching this that wants to come, please be there. 4 to 6, come hang with Commissioner DiPlacido, Commissioner and future State Rep Ben Sanchez, and myself, and State Rep-elect, yeah, come on. And that guy in the red and white suit will be there around 5 o'clock. So if someone's considering coming late, that's the time you might want to be there with the kids. Happy holidays and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner DiPlacido.
Thank you, President Luker, and thanks, Commissioner Rothman. And in addition to that, we're also collecting unwrapped gifts and gift cards for some of our needy families in the McKinley and the Abington area who need a little holiday help. And as always, when driving through Abington Township, please drive like your kids live here. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners Rothman and DiPlacido neglected if the weather is decent, there will be fire engine rides, right? Or are they not doing that this year?
Anybody from the police? I mean, from the fire department here?
Become a tradition, so the kids will be really disappointed, but it usually happens if the weather.
I think it'll be all right as long as it's not torrential downpours. We'll still get out there. People should just bring an umbrella or a jacket.
I did actually speak to the chief about this, and in the event of inclement weather, they will be canceled. So we're fingers are crossed for no rain.
In any event, we're just wishing everybody a very joyous and happy holiday season, no matter what you celebrate, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Parks and Rec for the beautiful trees that were installed over at Doherty Playground, along with the Shade Tree Commission. When we had to remove those trees previously, they were missed greatly. So it's great to see some replacements out there. Also, thanks to Public Works for picking up the leaves yesterday. Our streets are much less congested for it, and much appreciated. Thank you. Happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Vice President Klein.
The leaves got picked up in your ward? No comment.
Okay, I have no closing comments, so if there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you for attending. The meeting is adjourned.